The Wooting 60HE V2 is finally on my desk for review. This is one that a lot of you have been asking about in the comments for quite some time now. Now, Wooting pretty much kicked off the whole Hall effect keyboard craze with the original 60HE, and since then we've seen just about every major brand jump on the same idea, pushing things like adjustable actuation, rapid trigger and SOCD fully into the mainstream when we talk about competitive gaming keyboards. It's also one of the boards that constantly comes up in the comments whenever we look at anything remotely similar, with a lot of people pointing to Wooting as the one to beat in this space. Now, admittedly, and I'll say this going into the review, I've actually never used the original 60HE, so this is my first proper Wooting keyboard experience. The question is, does Wooting's flagship product actually live up to the hype, or is it just more of the same with a new name? Let's have a look at it, shall we? Hi guys, I'm Matt and welcome to Kit Guru. So then, today we're taking a look at the Wooting 60HE V2, a 60% Hall effect keyboard built around magnetic switches, designed absolutely primarily with competitive gaming in mind. The unit I've got here is the kind of build it yourself version using the 60HE V2 module, or the PCB and some dampening foam, lacquer Ticken medium switches, the aluminium case in silver, and then the ISO double shot PBT keycaps in white. You can pick it up pre-built and with either a plastic or aluminium case. If you go for the plastic, you're limited to black, while the aluminium option gives you the choice of black or silver, along with a range of different keycap options. At the time of recording, this exact configuration comes in at around 220 quid here in the UK, while a pre-built board with a plastic case and ABS keycaps brings that price down to 160 quid. So there are quite a few different options available depending on how you want to configure it if you pick one up. Starting off with the design then, and this is a very clean looking keyboard. There's nothing overly flashy going on here, no aggressive gamer styling, no unnecessary extras. I suppose the tag that you can put onto the side could be classed as that maybe, but you don't have to put it on. It's kind of, in its cleanest form, a simple 60% keyboard with a really solid, well-built feel. The aluminium case in particular, that makes a big difference, I think. It gives the board a proper sense of weight and rigidity that you don't always get with gaming keyboards. The aluminium on the case itself is finished very well. There's no blemishes or rough spots anywhere on the unit I was sent. Everything feels nicely machined and consistent. Being a 60% layout board, you're obviously losing the dedicated arrow keys and the function row, so that's something you need to take into consideration. That's just part and parcel of using a 60% board. I think the overall aesthetic is a big positive for me. Even with RGB on board, it doesn't feel over the top. You can turn the RGB off completely if you want a cleaner look as well. The split spacebar probably jumped out to some of you. Instead of a single long spacebar, you've got two separate keys along with an additional button sitting right in the middle. That extra key is actually really useful, especially considering the 60% layout, because you're missing the dedicated arrow keys that I mentioned. You can set that middle button up as a modifier. So when you hold it down, you can like set the WASD keys to act as arrow keys when you're holding that modifier key down. It's a really simple idea, but in practice, it makes navigating around a lot easier when using a keyboard of this format. You can map it to whatever you want, but what I just mentioned is the kind of use case that immediately stood out to me. It's one of those small design choices that ends up making a big difference day to day, especially if you're not fully sold on the limitations of a 60% layout like I am. You can also pick it up with a single normal traditional spacebar as well though. Let's talk gaming then, as this is undoubtedly what the 60HE V2 is all about. In terms of features, it's got everything. You've got adjustable actuation, so you can set exactly how far a key needs to travel before it registers. And getting that right is key. If you set it too low, as can be tempting when you first use a board like this, you'll end up double inputting all over the place. It does take a little bit of time to dial it in properly. Then you've got rapid trigger as well. I've been running it at around 0.15 millimeters across all of the keys, which is what I tend to use on most boards with this feature. And it gives that really quick, snappy feel without being overly difficult to control. On top of that, you've got SOCD, or as Wooting call it, snappy tappy. They were the first people, as far as I'm aware, to coin one of those phrases for it. It prioritizes the most recent input when pressing opposing directions. I've been using it on the A and D keys, and it does make strafing feel very, very responsive, although it is worth noting that it is banned in some games. The software, when you configure it though, it does flag that to you, which is a really nice touch. Using it to play FPS titles is the bottom line. It's the best experience I've ever had with a keyboard like this. There's no other way to describe it really. It's fast, it's responsive, and everything feels incredibly fluid. There's no sense of delay that I can pick up on, no weird inconsistencies. It's never done anything that's made me think what's going on. It just does exactly what you expect it to do every single time without fail. At least it has during my testing. In terms of day-to-day use, it's actually a really enjoyable keyboard to type on as well. But a lot of that does come down to how you've got it set up. If you leave everything tuned for gaming, it can feel a bit too sensitive for general use. But Wooting does include a dedicated typing profile out of the box, so you're not stuck in that jiggle peeking, flick shotting, no scoping, sweaty headshot mode when all you're trying to do is type up an email or browse the internet and look at funny cat videos. The only real downside for me personally is down to the layout. I've never been the biggest fan of 60% keyboards for general use, and that still applies here. You can work around it with layers and things like the split spacebar, the modifier key that I mentioned earlier, but it's still something that you need to get used to if you don't use one of these day in, day out. And more broadly, like any Hall effect keyboard, it does take a bit of time to get everything dialed in exactly how you want it. But once you've got that setup done and got it dialed in properly, the overall experience is better than anything I've ever had my hands on. Taking a look at the internals, and this is kind of where the DIY and the modding aspect comes into play a bit more. Putting the board together, as I had the DIY, the build it yourself model, is pretty straightforward, and Wooting gives you a couple of different options when it comes to dampening in the bottom of the case. You can choose either between silicone or foam, depending on the kind of sound and feel that you're going for. I went with the foam option 99% of the time. Thanks to the press fit design of the PCB though, it's incredibly easy to swap that out later on if you want to experiment between the two. On top of that, the PCB and an FR4 plate already come with foam sandwiched between them out of the box. So even before you start experimenting, there's already a solid kind of base to work with. In terms of how it sounds, it's actually really impressive for a gaming keyboard. It's not overly hollow, it's not too sharp. It's got a kind of nice controlled sound profile that feels a bit more refined than what you'd normally expect in this category. It does lean slightly towards the clackier side of things, but in a way that still sounds quite pleasant overall. The stabilizers are solid as well, with no obvious rattle or issues during use. Here's a few sound tests with the different dampening materials so you can hear what this thing sounds like for yourself. Putting the board together itself is quick and easy too. Wooting have got some really solid video guides that walk you through the process step by step. So even if you've never built a keyboard before, I don't think it's something that anyone will struggle with. Overall, I think it just feels like a very well thought out product from coming at it from the DIY sort of perspective. There are little touches throughout, like messages on the PCB and inside of the case, that give it a little bit of personality. And it comes across like a product that's been designed to be as good as it can be, rather than just to tick boxes and earn money for Wooting, which is really refreshing to see. Customizing the board is handled through Wootility, which is Wooting's web-based software, and honestly, is the best web-based driver I've ever used. First of all, the fact that it's web-based alone is kind of a big plus. There's nothing to install, it's lightweight and it just works. The layout is clean, everything is clearly labelled, and it's very easy to navigate. There are also tooltips throughout that explain exactly what everything does in a way that's actually easy to understand. And in some areas of the customization software, you can see yourself pressing the keys and changes that you're making being reflected in real time, which just makes the whole process feel a bit more intuitive. One of the standout features though, I think, is the ability to import someone else's profile just by pasting in a string of text. It's that simple. They send you the text, you copy it in, boom, everything's done. That might sound like a small thing, but I think it makes a big difference. I set up an additional profile by copying one from a friend that has this board, and then I tweaked it slightly over time to better suit how I play. And it just makes the whole process of dialing it in really quick and easy and a lot less stressful than on some boards that I've tried. And I think it opens the door to a much stronger community aspect surrounding users of this keyboard, where people can share profiles and settings really easily. I think that's helped the popularity of this keyboard as well. Not that it isn't good enough on its own to be popular. I think that's something that Wooting has done really well. They've built a fan base around their products exceptionally well. In terms of reliability with the software, I didn't run into a single issue while using it. No bugs, no crashes. It's worked flawlessly every single time I've used it. And I think overall, that just highlights how important the software side of things is. The hardware can be excellent, but if the software doesn't support it properly, it can really hold an experience of using a product back. Here though, I think Wootility doesn't just support the hardware, it kind of elevates the experience of using it. And in my opinion, it's setting the standard for the rest of the industry. Wooting give your developers a raise because they did a great job with the web-based config. So wrapping things up then, overall, the Wooting 60HE V2 is a seriously impressive keyboard. The build quality is excellent, the design is clean, the overall experience is as good as it gets for a Hall effect keyboard right now. More importantly though, it delivers all of its features in a way that's actually easy to use, which isn't something every board in this category can say. When it comes to solely gaming, this is the best keyboard I've ever used. That's a bold claim, I know, and it's not one I say lightly, but I stand by it. The level of control, responsiveness, and consistency you get here is just on another level once you've got everything dialed in properly. The only real drawback for me comes down to the 60% layout, and that's more of a personal preference thing. It's completely a personal preference thing than anything else though. Wooting do offer the 80HE, which I'm definitely interested in taking a look at after checking out this thing. Around 220 quid for this build that I've got though, it's definitely not cheap. But if you do take gaming even remotely seriously, or you're the kind of enthusiast who wants the best possible input experience and you can realistically afford it, then this is absolutely worth the money. It's a very, very good keyboard. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me a like down below and drop a comment down below letting me know what you think of the Wooting 60HE V2. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. And if you go down below the video, you'll find links to our merch store. And then in the video's description, there's a few more links to our Discord server, our Patreon page, and our website if you want to check any of that stuff out. Anyway guys, I've been Matt and this has been my review of the Wooting 60HE V2 keyboard. I'll speak to you in the next one. Look after yourselves. See you later.